My family left me at a gas station on purpose. He's an adult, he'll figure it out. They thought it was a joke. I took a bus out of state and never came back. 12 years later, they found me. Too late. Hey there. We're working hard to hit our first 1,000 subscribers. If you love true, emotional stories, hit that subscribe button. It helps more than you know. Now let's get into the story. I used to think that when your family joked about you behind your back, it was just normal. Like, everyone's family had a little dark humor, a little edge. I didn't realize until I was 23, standing outside a gas station in the middle of nowhere, that some jokes come with teeth. And sometimes, they're not really jokes at all. It started as a road trip. Not a fun, let's bond and sing songs kind of road trip. No, this was one of those passive-aggressive, boiling under the surface kind of trips where every wrong turn gets blamed on someone. Every bathroom stop turns into a lecture, and every silence feels like it's one step away from a fight. And me? I was the easy target. Always had been. We were supposed to visit my aunt 2 states over. A long drive, enough that we'd be stuck in the car together for hours. I tried to get out of it. Told them I had work. Told them I didn't feel great. But my mom shot back. It's family. You make time for family. And everyone nodded like that settled it. The day we left, I already felt off. Like I wasn't really supposed to be there. Like I was an extra in someone else's movie. They barely spoke to me. Just drove, windows down, arguing about directions and radio stations, while I sat in the back seat, half listening, half dozing. A few hours in, we pulled off at a rundown gas station off the highway. One of those places that looks like it hasn't been updated since the 70s. Flickering fluorescent lights, one grimy bathroom key attached to a cinder block, the smell of burnt coffee hanging in the air like a warning. Go grab a drink or something, my brother said, tossing me a crumpled $5 bill. I got out, stretched my legs, walked inside. Took my time picking a soda. When I came back out, the car was gone. At first, I thought maybe they just moved it around the back. Maybe they went through the drive-thru. Maybe they were pranking me, because they love their little, let's mess with him, games. I walked the lot once. Twice. Checked behind the building. Nothing. 15 minutes later, it started to sink in. I borrowed the clerk's phone to call my mom. Straight to voicemail. Called again. Then my brother. Then my dad. No answer. I texted, hey, where are you guys? Delivered. Read. No reply. I remember just standing there for a long time, feeling like a complete idiot. Every passing car kicking up dust, every honk from the highway cutting through the air like a reminder. They left you. And it wasn't a mistake. The cashier leaned out the door and said, you okay, man? I lied. Said my ride was coming. It wasn't. I didn't even have my wallet. I had the $5 my brother tossed me, and my phone was still plugged into the charger in the back seat of the car, because apparently, even when you're old enough to rent one yourself, your family can still treat you like a stupid kid who doesn't matter. I sat on the curb and just watched the sky darken. Watched the clerk turn the open sign to closed on the door. And then, about an hour later, a bus rumbled up to the gas station. It wasn't a fancy Greyhound or anything. Just one of those old city buses, probably rerouted or breaking down or God knows what. It shuddered to a stop like it was about to die there permanently. The driver leaned out, smoking a cigarette, and said, you getting on? I looked back at the empty lot. At the taillights that weren't there. At the horizon where nobody was coming for me. I said, where you headed? He shrugged. South. Maybe east after that. Don't know. $20 gets you wherever you want to go till I run out of gas. I didn't have $20, but I had 5, and a chip on my shoulder the size of the entire freaking state. I climbed on. The bus was almost empty. One guy asleep across 2 seats, his boots hanging into the aisle. A woman near the front whispering into a cracked phone, voice low and sharp. Somewhere in the back, a kid pressed against the window like he was trying to escape through the glass. The whole thing smelled like stale cigarettes, motor oil, and the kind of sadness that sticks to your clothes. I didn't ask questions. I didn't hand over my $5. I just nodded at the driver and found a seat near the middle, keeping my head down like I belonged there. He didn't bother asking for more. The bus lurched forward with a grinding sound, headlights cutting into the night, and just like that, I was gone. I didn't have a plan. I didn't even have a destination. All I had was the growing certainty that I wasn't going back. About an hour into the ride, the driver pulled over at a truck stop. He climbed down, leaving the engine idling, and said to the few of us still awake, stretch your legs. Smoke him if you got him. I stayed put, staring out the window at the flickering neon signs, the glow of vending machines, the tired truckers shuffling around like ghosts. That's when it hit me. I was free. Not free in the cheesy movie sense. Not the kind of freedom where you spread your arms wide and run into the sunrise. No, this was heavier. Like standing at the edge of a cliff and realizing there's no one behind you anymore. No safety net. No one waiting to haul you back when you screw up. If I called them, if I begged, maybe they'd come back. Maybe they'd laugh it off. Maybe they'd tell me it was a lesson about growing up or being self-reliant or some other garbage excuse they always used when they wanted to feel better about treating me like trash. But sitting there in that sticky vinyl seat, listening to the bus creak and groan like it was alive, I realized something. I didn't want them to come back. Not now. Not ever. I had nothing. No cash. No ID. No phone. But I also had no expectations. No weight dragging behind me. No sarcastic voices telling me I was a burden or a failure or a joke. It was just me and the open road. And somehow that was enough. The bus kept rolling south. Hours blurred together. I drifted in and out of sleep, waking up every time we hit a pothole or swerved too hard. By sunrise, we crossed into another state. I didn't know which one. Didn't care. The driver finally pulled into a tiny town, the kind of place with 2 gas stations, a diner, and a hardware store that doubled as the town hall. "This is as far as I'm going," he grunted, tapping a cigarette out of a crumpled pack. "You're on your own now, kid." I climbed down onto cracked pavement, the air hot and heavy already even though it wasn't even 8 a.m. yet. The bus pulled away with a coughing roar, trailing a thin line of black smoke down the road until it disappeared. And just like that, I was alone. Really alone. I didn't know where I was. I didn't know what was going to happen next. All I knew was that whatever life I was about to build, it would be mine. No secondhand scraps handed down from a family that laughed behind my back. No more being the punchline to someone else's cruel joke. My stomach growled hard enough to hurt, and my mouth tasted like stale vending machine coffee from the truck stop. I had maybe $2 crumpled in my pocket. Maybe less. I looked around. The town was waking up slowly. Shop doors swinging open. Sprinklers hissing to life on dry lawns. A lady walking a dog smiled at me, like I was just any other sleepy traveler passing through. She didn't see a loser. She didn't see a screw-up. She didn't see the guy whose family couldn't even be bothered to turn the car around. She just saw a person. And for the first time in my life, that felt like enough. I picked a direction, toward the diner, because at least it smelled like bacon and hope, and I started walking. The diner was called Marlene's, if the chipped sign out front was telling the truth. It looked like the kind of place that hadn't changed since 1982. Red vinyl booths, a jukebox in the corner that nobody used, the smell of frying bacon soaked into the walls. I pushed open the door, and the little bell overhead gave a sad, lazy jingle. The woman behind the counter, short, late 50s maybe, gray hair in a messy bun, looked up and gave me a once-over. Not suspicious, not judgmental, just sizing me up like a carpenter looking at a piece of wood, figuring out what it could be used for. "You hungry?" she asked. I nodded, hand instinctively going to my pocket like I had something worth offering. I pulled out the crumpled bills, straightened them out on the counter like they were lottery tickets. $2 and some change, I said. "You got anything for that?" She didn't laugh, didn't make a scene. She just poured me a black coffee and slid a plate across the counter, 2 eggs, toast, and a slice of bacon that looked like it had been fighting for its life on the grill. "Sit," she said. "Eat." I hesitated for half a second, old instincts screaming at me that nothing was ever free, that kindness usually came with strings attached. But I sat, and I ate. God, it tasted better than any 5-star restaurant I'd ever dreamed about. I cleaned the plate like I hadn't eaten in a week. Probably because I hadn't. When I finished, I tried to hand her the money. She just shook her head. "You traveling through?" she asked, wiping down the counter with a rag that had seen better days. "Something like that," I said. "You looking for work?" I blinked. "You offering?" She smiled, and it was the first real smile I'd seen in what felt like years. "Busboy quit last week. Took off with a waitress and half my cash register. You breathe and you can carry plates? You're hired." I spent the next 6 months washing dishes, wiping tables, hauling garbage out back in the dead of night, while raccoons watched me with those creepy little hands. I slept in the back room at first, a cramped space barely big enough for a cot and a battered dresser, but I didn't complain. It was 4 walls and a roof. And most important, nobody knew me here. Nobody laughed behind my back. Nobody expected me to be the family joke. Every morning, I'd wake up before sunrise, fill the salt shakers, restock the ketchup bottles, make coffee so strong it could probably strip paint. It was hard. It was thankless. It was exactly what I needed. Marlene didn't ask questions about where I came from. Neither did the regulars, truckers, retirees, a few guys who worked at the local factory. They just saw me busting my ass and left it at that. In a weird way, I started to like it. Not love it. Not dream about it. But like it. There was something honest about scrubbing grease off a grill until your arms ached. Something pure about earning every single cent that came across the counter. And little by little, my ghost life started to feel real. I saved every dollar I could. At night, I'd sit out back behind the diner, counting crumpled bills under the buzzing glow of the security light. $10, 20, 40, more than I'd ever had when I was with my family. Back when they said I was lazy, unmotivated, aimless. Funny how fast you can build something when nobody's busy tearing you down. Eventually, I saved enough for a crappy used car, a rust-red pickup that coughed smoke every time I started it, but got me from point A to point B. With the car came a little more freedom. I started picking up odd jobs around town. Yard work, painting, helping the old guy down the street fix up his porch. Word got around. That kid from Marlene's? He's a hard worker. He shows up on time. He doesn't steal your tools or sneak a smoke break every 10 minutes. By the time a year had rolled by, I wasn't just surviving. I was living. Still small. Still scraping by. But on my terms. One night, after closing, Marlene sat down across from me with 2 cups of coffee. "You're not going to be a busboy forever," she said, matter of fact. "You're better than that. You just don't know it yet." I didn't answer. I didn't trust my voice not to crack. Because nobody, not teachers, not family, not friends, had ever said anything like that to me before. She slid a folded piece of paper across the table. It was an application for the local trade school. Carpentry, welding, electrical work. "Think about it," she said. "Scholarship covers most of it. You just gotta want it bad enough." And just like that, the horizon cracked open. A real life. A real future. One that didn't involve chasing people who never wanted me around in the first place. I sat there for a long time after she left, staring at the application. And for the first time in my life, I started to believe maybe, just maybe, I could do something more than survive. Maybe I could build something. Something that couldn't be taken away. Something that nobody could laugh at. Something that mattered. 12 years. That's how long it had been since I last saw their faces. 12 years since the gas station. 12 years since the bus. 12 years since I decided I wasn't going to be anyone's joke anymore. I had built a life. It didn't happen overnight. Trade school wasn't easy. Balancing work and classes and exhaustion wasn't easy. But every time I wanted to quit, I thought about standing in that gas station parking lot with nothing but $5 and a soda in my hand. And somehow, that kept me moving forward. I learned a trade. I started my own small company. Nothing fancy, just a few guys doing electrical work, repairs, renovations. Word of mouth grew. Jobs turned into contracts. Contracts turned into bigger jobs. Pretty soon, I wasn't just surviving. I was running a business. I was hiring people. I was paying salaries. And still, no social media. No family updates. No birthday cards. No calls. No attempts to find me. At least, not until the day a man in a cheap suit showed up at my office. It was a Friday afternoon, right before closing. The receptionist buzzed me. "There's some guy here, says he's a private investigator." That alone almost made me laugh. What was I, hiding from the mob? But I stepped out into the lobby anyway, wiping drywall dust off my jeans, and there he was, tired eyes, thick folder under one arm, tie loose like he had better things to do. "You're hard to track down," he said. "No social footprint. No credit cards in your old name." "That was the point," I said. He gave me a careful look, like he was weighing whether to say the next part. "Your family's looking for you," he said finally. "Says it's urgent." The words felt like a rock dropped into still water. 12 years of silence. And now, suddenly, urgency? Which ones? I asked. Not because I cared. Just curiosity, like poking a dead snake to see if it still moves. "Mother, father, brother. They hired me a month ago," he said. "They said they thought you might be in trouble." I smiled at that. A real smile. Not happy. Not sad. Just a quiet, tired kind of amusement. Trouble? I had been in trouble 12 years ago. Standing barefoot in a broken parking lot with nobody coming back for me. Now I had a company. A crew that depended on me. A life that didn't include them. "I'm not interested," I said. The man hesitated. He pulled out a battered envelope and held it out like it might bite him. "At least read the letter," he said. I didn't want it. Every instinct told me to walk away, throw it out, forget they ever remembered I existed. But I took it. Because sometimes you have to look at the wreckage up close to remember why you left it behind. After the guy left, I sat in the back of my office, the building empty and silent around me, and opened the envelope. The letter wasn't handwritten. It wasn't heartfelt. It wasn't even particularly long. It was typed, cold and careful. My mother's name at the bottom, but no signature. It said they missed me. It said they regretted how things happened. It said they always knew I was strong enough to figure it out. Like it had all been some kind of inspirational lesson. Like abandoning your son at a gas station was the same thing as pushing him on a swing set and telling him he could fly. And at the end, the real kicker, it said they wanted to reconnect. Maybe even rebuild the family bond. Family bond. I leaned back in my chair, staring at the ceiling, wondering how people could twist reality into whatever shape made them feel better about themselves. They didn't miss me. They missed the idea of me. The image of the son who got his life together, who could be a story they told at church or at dinner parties. Remember how we taught him to be tough? Look at him now. They missed the chance to look good. They missed the part where they got to pretend they had anything to do with it. And the worst part? They didn't even realize how obvious it was. The next morning, before the sun came up, I packed a small duffel bag. Not because I wanted to go back. Not because I wanted to forgive. Because I needed to see it for myself. I needed to look them in the eye and remind myself that I wasn't imagining it all those years ago. That the people who left me behind weren't just having a bad day. They were who they were. And no apology letter was going to rewrite that. I didn't tell them I was coming. No warning. No text. No dramatic build-up. I just threw my duffel bag in the back of the truck and drove. It was strange how fast the old highways came back to me. Like muscle memory. Like even after all those years, part of me still remembered every cracked sign, every mile marker, every diner parking lot where we used to stop when I was a kid. It didn't feel nostalgic. It didn't feel like coming home. It felt like driving straight into a place I had already buried. When I pulled into their driveway, I didn't even recognize the house at first. Fresh paint, new shutters, a nicer car in the driveway. They had cleaned it all up, made it look picture perfect, like they were starring in a brochure for Good Families of America. I sat there for a while, engine ticking as it cooled, watching the curtains twitch. They knew I was here. I got out, stretched my legs, took my time walking up to the door. It opened before I could knock. There they were. My mother, my father, my brother, standing together like a family portrait that had been waiting 12 years for the photographer to show up. They looked older, tired around the eyes, softer somehow, like time had worn down the sharp edges they used to slice me open with. For a second, just one, I wondered if maybe, somehow, they had changed. But then my mother smiled. That same brittle, nervous smile she used to give right before blaming me for something that wasn't my fault. "Look at you," she said, reaching for a hug. I stepped back without thinking. She hesitated, hand still half outstretched, before letting it fall. Awkward silence hung between us. "You got our letter," my father said, like this was some kind of scheduled business meeting. I nodded. "We were hoping." He trailed off, searching my face for something. Forgiveness. Permission. Maybe just the illusion that they hadn't completely screwed this up beyond repair. I didn't give them anything. Instead, I pulled the old photo from my jacket pocket. It was wrinkled, faded from years of being jammed into a book I barely touched anymore. A photo of me, at the gas station, standing alone next to the rusted ice machine, holding a plastic bag with a soda and a pack of gum inside. Taken by a bored trucker who thought it was funny to send it to my brother as a joke. It had ended up in my hands by accident. Years later, when I'd finally let myself open the last messages on the old phone I'd managed to recover. I held the photo out. They stared at it like it was something dead. "I waited 3 hours," I said quietly. "At that gas station. 3 hours before I realized nobody was coming back." My brother looked away first, staring at the floor like maybe it would swallow him whole if he just kept his head down long enough. My mother's mouth opened, ready with an excuse, a soft lie to smooth over the rough parts. But nothing came out. My father just sighed. Not regret. Not shame. Just exhaustion, like he was the one who had been abandoned. I folded the photo back into my jacket. "I'm not here to make you feel better," I said. "I'm not here for an apology. I'm not here to fix anything." My voice wasn't angry. It wasn't sad. It was just done. Finished like a road that ends in a cliff you can't build past. "You made your choice a long time ago," I said. "And I made mine." They didn't argue. Didn't beg. Didn't reach for me again. Maybe deep down, they knew this was the only ending that ever made sense. I turned and walked back to my truck without looking back. Without feeling that old, heavy ache dragging behind me. As I pulled away, I caught a glimpse of them in the rearview mirror. 3 small figures standing in front of a perfect little house, watching me disappear again. But this time, it wasn't because they left me behind. It was because I chose to leave them. And I wasn't coming back. Not ever. I didn't drive straight home after that. I took the long way. Through back roads and empty highways, past towns so small they didn't even have names on the map. I let the miles stretch out behind me like a skin I didn't need anymore. The further I got, the lighter I felt. It wasn't about being angry anymore. It wasn't about proving anything. It was about putting the last nail in a coffin that should have been buried a long time ago. When I finally pulled into my own driveway, my real home, the sun was just starting to set. The old dog next door barked once and went back to sleep on the porch. My neighbor waved as she watered her plants. Nobody waiting with open arms. Nobody making speeches. Just quiet, ordinary life carrying on like I had never been gone. And somehow, that was exactly what I needed. Inside, The place still smelled like sawdust and fresh paint. The furniture didn't match. The floors creaked. There were half-finished projects in every room. It wasn't perfect. It wasn't polished. But it was mine. I dropped the duffel by the door, kicked off my boots, and sank into the old couch that leaned slightly to the left because I still hadn't gotten around to fixing the leg. For a while, I just sat there, breathing, listening to the sound of a house that didn't expect anything from me except maybe a little maintenance and the occasional curse when I smashed my thumb with a hammer. I thought about Marlene, the woman who handed me a plate of food when I had nothing. I thought about the old trade school instructor who stayed late to help me prep for certification exams because he said I had a mind for fixing things, even if people forgot to tell me. I thought about the friends I made along the way, the ones who showed up at my first tiny shop opening, bought coffees they didn't need, spread the word even when there wasn't much to spread. People who hadn't known anything about the gas station. People who hadn't seen the wreckage. People who didn't care where I came from, only where I was willing to go. And for the first time, it really hit me. Family isn't who shares your blood. It's who shows up when you're standing alone with nothing but $5 and a bag of soda. It's who hands you a plate without asking what you can offer in return. It's who looks at you and sees something worth building, even when you're still figuring it out yourself. My phone buzzed on the coffee table. I ignored it. Maybe it was them again. Maybe it wasn't. Didn't matter. They had found me 12 years too late. They weren't looking for me when it mattered. When I needed someone to pick me up off that curb and tell me I was worth staying for. Now I didn't need them. Not to validate me. Not to explain themselves. Some holes you don't fill. You just build around them. I picked up the envelope the private investigator had given me and tossed it into the fireplace without ceremony. The paper blackened, curled, and vanished into ash. Outside, the sky was slipping from gold to deep blue. Tomorrow there'd be jobs to finish, contracts to review, maybe even plans to finally fix that crooked table leg. Life moves forward, whether people come with you or not. And if they're not there, if they chose not to be there when it counted, you leave them exactly where they left you, in the past, where they belong. And that's the story. If you're still here, that means you're one of us. So go ahead, hit that subscribe button. I drop new chaos every single day, and trust me, tomorrow's story, it's even worse than this one.